Why recovery matters more than discipline. For years, discipline was treated as a solution. Wake earlier, work harder, train longer, push through discomfort. And for a while, it seemed to work. The narrative was simple and compelling. Progress belonged to those who control themselves most tightly. Consistency was framed as virtue. Fatigue was framed as weakness. If results lagged, the answer was assumed to be more structure, more effort, more restraint. Discipline promised mastery over time, body, and outcome. But then the data told a different story. The people who lived longest were not the most disciplined. They were the ones who recovered best. And that distinction changed everything. Modern longevity culture praises control. Routines perfected. Habits tracked. Days optimized down to minutes. Discipline offers something comforting. The sense that health can be managed through willpower alone. Yet to understand why recovery matters more, we need to look at what discipline does to the body over time. Because effort without resolution quietly reshapes biology. Discipline keeps systems activated. Muscles remain primed. Attention stays sharpened. Stress hormones rise to support focus and output. In short bursts, this is healthy. It is how learning happens, how strength builds, how adaptation occurs. The body is designed to respond to challenge. The problem begins when effort becomes continuous. Recovery is what completes the cycle. It tells the nervous system the threat has passed. It signals that vigilance is no longer required. It allows repair to move from background process to primary task. Without that signal, the body stays in a defensive posture, diverting resources away from long-term maintenance. Without recovery, discipline becomes strain. Researchers began noticing a consistent pattern across long-term health data. Highly disciplined individuals often showed elevated markers of inflammation. Hormonal rhythms flattened instead of rising and falling distinctly. Sleep became lighter, more fragmented, less restorative. On the surface, these individuals looked healthy. They exercised. They ate carefully. They followed rules. Underneath, their bodies were aging faster. This was not a failure of willpower. It was a mismatch between cultural ideals and biological reality. Biology does not reward endless effort. It rewards cycles. Stress followed by safety. Activation followed by resolution. Once that difference became clear, a deeper question emerged. Had modern longevity advice been teaching people to age faster in the name of control? As researchers compared highly disciplined routines with recovery-focused lives, the contrast became impossible to ignore. Discipline produced consistency. Recovery produced durability. People who optimized every hour rarely allowed systems to shut down completely. Even rest became another task to manage. Sleep was tracked. Relaxation was scheduled. Leisure was evaluated for efficiency. The nervous system never fully disengaged because anticipation of the next demand was always present. Those who recovered well lived differently. Effort had clear edges. Work ended decisively instead of bleeding into downtime. Rest was unmeasured and uninterrupted. There was no attempt to optimize stillness. The body received unmistakable signals that vigilance was no longer required. Biologically, this difference was profound. In recovery-rich lives, inflammation resolved instead of lingering. Sleep cycles deepened and stabilized. Hormonal rhythms regained contrast, rising and falling as designed. Repair pathways activated without competition from constant alertness. Discipline alone could not trigger these effects. In fact, excessive control often blocked them. The body does not repair efficiently while being monitored, optimized, or rushed. Repair requires permission, not pressure. What surprised researchers was how little extra effort recovery required. It was not about adding more practices. It was about subtracting demands. Fewer overlapping commitments, fewer open loops, fewer signals that something still needed attention. This reframed longevity entirely. The goal was no longer perfect adherence, but complete resolution, not relentless progress, but rhythmic engagement. The body did not need to be pushed harder. It needed to be allowed to finish what it started. And this exposed a quiet flaw in modern advice. We teach people how to push. We rarely teach them how to stop. The conflict becomes clear when recovery collides with modern identity. Discipline is visible. It signals ambition, virtue, and control. Recovery is invisible. It looks like doing nothing. It produces no immediate metrics, no external proof. In productivity-driven cultures, rest feels irresponsible. Pauses feel like weakness. People learn to stay activated even when they stop working. Minds replay tasks. Bodies brace for interruption. Recovery is attempted but never completed. Researchers found that this incomplete rest was biologically ineffective. The nervous system never received a clear signal of safety. Repair mechanisms stayed secondary. Aging continued under the surface, unchecked by effort or intention. Those who recovered well broke this pattern deliberately or circumstantially. They allowed projects to end fully. They accepted downtime without justification. They tolerated stillness long enough for physiology to shift states. This was not easy. It often required resisting social pressure, letting go of optimization, accepting that some time produces no visible output and no measurable gain. Recovery demanded trust rather than control. The conflict intensified when disciplined individuals try to add recovery without subtracting demand. Meditation layered onto overload. Sleep optimized between late nights. Vacations interrupted by work. These strategies did not restore balance. They added friction. The data was unambiguous. Recovery cannot coexist with constant vigilance. One cancels the other. Longevity favors a state that allows systems to shut off completely, not partially. This forced a difficult conclusion. Many people were aging not because they lacked discipline, but because they lacked permission to stop. And until that permission exists structurally, no amount of effort will slow the clock. The climax of the story is the realization that discipline, without recovery, becomes a form of slow erosion. It looks productive. It feels controlled. But biologically, it keeps the body locked in a state meant only for emergencies. Recovery is not the absence of effort. It is the completion of it. The moment when the nervous system understands that nothing more is required, that vigilance can end, that repair can begin. The resolution is not to abandon discipline, but to redefine it. True discipline includes knowing when to stop, when to close loops, when to allow systems to power down without guilt or justification. Longevity does not reward constant output. It rewards contrast. Intensity followed by genuine rest. Focus followed by release. Lives that move in clear cycles rather than endless escalation. Modern culture often praises those who endure without pause. But the body keeps a different score. Years are not lost during effort. They are lost when effort never concludes. And once that is understood, recovery stops looking like weakness and starts looking like one of the most powerful longevity tools we have.